Hello, good morning, and welcome to another Motivational Monday. I can actually see myself now, so I'll know where to look. Dave always complains that I look in the wrong direction, but welcome to another Motivational Monday. We are here today with a live studio audience. Dave, I don't know if you have a shot of that or not, but if you want to at some point show that. Oh, there we go. We got some people here in the audience. Hey, guys, how are you? All right, so today we've got a pretty jam-packed Motivational Monday. We're going to cover quite a few things. We're going to go through the commission lawsuits, finally starting to get some clarity around the whole NAR situation with the zero compensation piece. We're going to go through, talk through Redfin leaving NAR. That's pretty impactful. We're also going to talk about the rates. So we had non-farm payroll. I always want to get tongue-tied.
A crusher.
Yeah, a crusher on Friday.
A crushing number. Yeah, they're referring to it as the honey badger job market because it just won't quit.
It just okay, and unemployment at 3.7, where you normally would think that's a positive, but we're going to talk about what audio problem. Okay, just for audio. Okay, let's make sure.
Check 1, 2. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Let us know. No.
We're getting lots of no's. All right.
Nope. What is happening? Okay, but can you hear me? Okay, that's the question. Something about people in the audience is what creates these issues here. Okay. We'll give it a second for Dave to figure this out. And just give a thumbs up whenever it starts to sound better.
Getting better.
Getting better, okay.
Yeah, I think so. When we bring in the studio audience, we set these speakers up in here.
Oh, yeah.
And everything seems to change and break.
That's right. Okay, we're getting lots of thumbs ups. Okay. All right, so we'll go through that very quickly again. We're going to go through kind of the payroll, the job
Non-farm
report.
payroll, yeah. It was,
that's what I'm looking for.
we were expecting like 180,000, and we got 330,000.
Right.
So pretty shocking at where we are. And look, this week's unemployment report's obviously now going to be important, but we'll see where we land.
Yep. All right, we're going to go through Showcase. So you guys know we have an October special that's happening that involves Showcase. A lot of people are unfamiliar with what that is, so we'll talk through that. We're going to talk through some childhood dreams that you've been able to accomplish recently, which is why I always like to kind of pick your brain in terms of the long journey that it takes to achieve your version of success. And then, of course, we'll finish with our state announcement. So we'll just give it a few more seconds to make sure our audio is okay. I think it was okay for me. Good. All right, and everyone can hear Robert okay as well, too?
Can you hear me out there in Zoom world? How are we doing, guys?
Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. So it seems like we're good. All right, so let's jump right in. We are finally getting some clarity around this whole NAR commission lawsuit.
Yeah.
I know anywhere. What's your take on what's happening there?
Yes, I think the really big thing that we had to focus on, or that I was really focused on, is... Hey, Dave. There we go. There was this idea they were going to ban buyer's agent commission, and I think that was kind of obviously the scare tactic or the worst case scenario. When you look at the fact that these really big companies, NAR included, Anywhere, RE/MAX, we're going to have to write really big checks. I think there was a kind of a desire to get the whole industry rallying around this by maybe making it seem a little scarier than it was actually going to be. And look, if the ruling came out and said they were going to ban buyer's agent commission, that would be rough. I don't personally see how that happens. To me, that's now anti-competitive behavior in the other direction. You know, this idea of like you dictating to sellers whether or not they can compensate a buyer's agent. What DOJ and what the spirit of the law wants is consumer choice. They want the seller to be able to decide, do I want to compensate a buyer's agent or not? And so if we look at the playing field before, NAR said they did require an offer of compensation. And most MLSs would require either a penny or $1 or $10, depending on how they program their system. So literally like probably a computer programmer at each of these markets just picked this number because they decided whether or not that field was going to take a penny, $1, or $10. In a lot of cases, I doubt it was like a well-thought-out MLS rule because very few people go down that low. And if you look at who would be most likely to go down that low, obviously like FSBOs aren't part of this system at all, and most FSBOs will still pay a buyer's agent commission. And then a lot of the listing flat fee, like, hey, I'll put your home in the MLS for $200, those guys would be very likely to take advantage of not paying buyer's agent commission if they don't want to pay a listing agent. And then finally, listing agents who advertise maybe like the 3% total all in, I'll sell your house. And so we did a big study. We looked, there's not a lot of sellers who have taken advantage of the prior minimums of a penny or $1 or $10 like less than 3% of all listings had numbers that low. So I think most sellers recognize that compensating a buyer's agent is in their best interest, and they're going to continue to do so. What the settlements really seem to revolve around is, again, transparency, clarity, education for the sellers. But we did see Anywhere and RE/MAX both settle, and they put out the 8 points of their settlement, which we're going to talk about here this morning. And then NAR responded with saying that they did not actually require any compensation, that 0 was an allowable amount, which anecdotally most people don't believe that was their actual stance. There's talk of people being fined in the past, but again, this could be miscommunications between NAR and the local MLSs. Again, a lot of different parties involved. But what everyone has landed on now is this idea. Again, much different than. They're saying we lost sound again, Dave.
We're back.
Okay. All right, am I back? We're back. Good. The idea that they were going to ban compensation would have been much different. That would have been much more detrimental to the industry. The idea that now sellers have a choice about whether or not they're going to pay compensation, I think as agents, as long as we do a good job of continuing to educate sellers on why it's important, but that it is their choice, we're going to land in a pretty good place. Number 2, this was kind of a big one. This was in both of their releases, is that they will no longer allow claims to be made that services as a buyer's agent are free to the buyer. And so this is kind of one of the whole, kind of cruxes of the antitrust thing. NAR has actually had this rule for a while. Now Anywhere and RE/MAX have both had to adopt it, but it will now be against their policies for agents to claim that buyer's agent services are free to the buyer, because ultimately someone is compensating them, and if the seller won't, then the buyer has to take responsibility of that. So again, something to be aware of, something our agents should be aware of. Again, while we're not part of the RE/MAX or Anywhere settlements, this is a good policy, I think, for any brokerage to have, so that buyers do understand that our services are not free. Someone is paying for them, whether it's the seller through cooperative agent compensation, whether it's the seller through a buyer's commission or a buyer's closing cost concession, or the buyer themselves through a buyer-broker agreement. So we definitely want to stay away from that language. Transparency to display if there are offers of compensation, what they are. So Anywhere and RE/MAX both had to agree on their listing sites to show how much the compensation is, the buyer's agent compensation. Not to provide any software that allows agents to sort listings by the amount of compensation offered, and encourage or prohibit agents from having any type of filters in this manner unless directed by the client. And so, again, this is where we get into this kind of nuanced idea of who is actually paying for the services. So I guess the way I think about it is, if your buyer agrees that they're going to compensate you a certain amount, let's say you have a buyer-broker agreement, the buyer agrees to compensate you 2.5% of the sales price, and that the buyer is saying, hey, I understand this is your cost. I understand your services are not free to me. It's going to cost 2.5%, and I understand there's a high likelihood that most sellers historically have been willing to cover that, so I don't have to. But now the nice thing is, you as an agent can now reach out to a seller who potentially is not offering compensation and say, hey, my buyer has agreed to compensate me 2.5%. If you are unwilling to cover that compensation, either via an offer of compensation or via a closing cost concession, they aren't going to be able to buy your house because they just don't have enough funds. And that's a very different statement than saying, I'm not going to show your house because you won't pay me. And this is where we have to really understand, where are we coming from, right? The client's interests come first. If the client has agreed to pay you a compensation, but they need the seller to help assist them with that, just like in a lot of loans or mortgages where the buyer needs the seller to give them some closing cost concessions. On a VA loan, the seller is more likely to be needed to help with the non-allowables. This is pretty normal in our industry, but if you're going in with the attitude of saying, hey, my buyer has agreed to this compensation, and if you're unwilling to pay it, it's going to make it difficult or impossible for them to buy your house, so we may not bother showing it because they can't buy it anyway. I'll talk to my customer, is different than you making the unilateral decision on your side to say, I'm not going to show any houses if they don't pay me compensation, which would then be moving into the world of an antitrust violation. So again, not having the software and not giving agents the ability to sort listings by amount of compensation, and less directed by the client, because if the client says, hey, yeah, I'm cool paying you 2.5, so please only show me houses where the seller will help cover that. Like, that's a choice the client can make, and we as agents have to allow the clients to make those decisions. reminding all agents of their professional obligation to show and market properties regardless of what the offer of cooperative compensation might be. So this was in the RE/MAX settlement. This was not specifically mentioned in Anywhere's settlement, so this may be a RE/MAX only thing. Again, making sure that you're doing what's in the best interest of your client, but they've now had to specifically agree to this, which means if agents do violate it, they're going to have a higher burden of responsibility because they've agreed to all this in the settlement. Not setting any minimum amounts of commission and allow commissions to be completely negotiable, and also make clear that commissions are not set by law. Number 7, develop educational materials to educate agents on the policies and practices mentioned above. So, hey, you guys, RE/MAX and Anywhere, you agreed to all of this, so now you need to educate all of your agents and franchise owners so they understand and that your agents don't run afoul of these new things you've agreed to. And then finally, each franchise brokerage now has the ability to make their own choice as to whether or not they want to be a member of NAR. Now, this doesn't mean that every RE/MAX or Anywhere could just leave NAR tomorrow, because if they leave NAR, there are MLS implications, there are obviously IDX implications depending on what state they're in. And more importantly, if the brokerage remains a member, then all of the agents have to remain a member as well under current NAR rules. One of the things that I think really hung these guys up in the antitrust settlement was the the requirement for all of the local independently owned brokerages to be members of NAR, and so that's gone now. So you can be a RE/MAX franchise or an Anywhere franchise and make a decision to not have your brokerage be a member of NAR. But once you do that, now none of your agents at your brokerage can be members of NAR. So there's all this really complicated stuff going on right now around this. We don't know where it's all going to shake out. My high-level take is, while there may be some small nuances to how we do business, again, how we communicate commissions to our buyers, buyer-broker agreements are going to become more important. Even if you're not trying to lock them in, if they use someone else, just to get them to agree that if they do use you, this is the amount of compensation the buyer is willing to pay you. So then you have a starting point of understanding whether or not the seller is going to cover that, either through an offer of compensation or through a seller concession. They can do it either way. And then finally, this piece, this last one, number 8, of them now having the ability to leave NAR matches up with what Redfin did last week. So just last week or week before, Redfin announced they are leaving NAR. Redfin runs a different model. They've got the salaried agents on the bonus plan. They are not necessarily disrupting their agents' ability to earn income by making this move. Most brokerages would. If you think about loss of access to lockboxes, loss of access to MLS, which in certain states is a thing. So here in Florida, as a part of the 11th District, here you can be a member of MLS whether you are a member of NAR or not. You just have to be at what's called, they call it a Thompson broker, because that's the case that the 11th District ruled on that said that you can join the MLS without being a member of NAR. Not all districts agree with that. California and the 11th District, which is the Southeast, do have that ruling. In all other states, it's really up to the local MLS or not as to whether or not they're going to require NAR membership. So if a Redfin agent is doing business in a market where the MLS requires NAR membership in order to get access to MLS, those Redfin agents will now lose access to MLS. So again, Redfin, obviously a big company, they looked at all the kind of ramifications of this, but there's a lot to think about. This is a much more complex situation than just saying, hey, we all think we should leave NAR or not. And again, just because now the RE/MAX and Anywhere franchises are no longer required to be members of NAR doesn't mean that we're going to see all of them leave. And I don't know that you're going to see a lot leave anyway.
Yep.
So we're obviously going to keep an eye on that. But things are moving. Obviously, a lot of things happening there. I know it's a lot of deep dive on that, going through those 8 things. But we're obviously watching this outcome. I feel really good that this is not going to destroy our industry. I think some of the early fear-mongering was really just about trying to get agents on board against these lawsuits to try to protect from the settlements that ultimately happened. And so Anywhere is writing a big check. RE/MAX is writing a big check. Both are franchises. No one has settled yet that's a non-franchise brokerage. No actual just brokerages have settled. It's only been franchises. And I think the franchise laws are a big part of that and how that created the potential antitrust violation. We did see one MLS settle, the Penn MLS up in the Northeast. And we're going to continue to watch it. Keller has not announced anything yet. There's a couple other defendants, Berkshire Hathaway, who has not come out yet. But we're going to keep watching it and share those developments with you. But bottom line, there are going to be some nuances to kind of clean up some of the ways we communicate our value proposition and our income to our buyers. But at the end of the day, I don't see this turning the industry upside down. And again, there's been no talk of prohibiting buyers from being paid by sellers.
Right. Yeah, and I think what the concern is, what a lot of people have is they're thinking that there's going to be now this new wave of people, or there's going to be this idea that we should work for free. And that's not what it really is saying. It's just saying make it more transparent and make that option more available for people to choose. But we all know that if someone's not offering compensation, the impact is going to work itself out. What you talked about earlier was how you communicate that. Hey, listen, I've got someone who could potentially be interested in it. I'm going to have to charge them the 2.5%. This may make them not be able to afford your home. We're going to have to, make that a part of negotiations, or, talk about it from that way in terms of like, hey, we're going to give you as a, contribution towards a sale. But again, it's not about saying advocating working for free. Like, there's people who are concerned about that, so that's what they hear, but that's not what you're saying. That's not what we're talking about. We're only saying if you go to address it where someone is offering zero compensation, which technically existed today at the $1 or the $10 amount,
Right.
which is such a small percentage of sales, no one has probably even really come across it. If you have to have that conversation, this is how you should do it so that you're not, bumping up against any of these violations that could potentially happen. So
Yeah, absolutely. And again, having that compensation conversation with your buyer is going to become more important. Like, that's probably the one big difference we're going to see. Right now, I think most of us think of the buyer-broker agreement more as like tying the consumer to us as an agent. I think you're going to see that move a little bit to say, hey, even if I'm not trying to tie them to me as an agent, I do want to make it clear and understood what my compensation will be if they do work with me.
Right.
And that's different than saying, hey, like, for 6 months, no matter who you buy, if you buy any house, you're going to pay me. That's kind of the current idea behind buyer-broker compensation agreements. I think you're going to see a new version of that says, hey, this agreement does not require you to use me, but if you do use me, this is what the compensation looks like, and then that would really eliminate a lot of these issues. But we're going to keep an eye on it. Again, two big industry franchise companies have now settled. They're going to have to put these things into effect. They're going to have to be the first ones to figure out practically what this looks like to actually put into effect in the real world, and then it will start to ripple from there out to the rest of the industry, because the rest of the brokerages are not going to want to get caught with the same problem that they did. Again, not being a franchise helps. I really, from our attorneys kind of looking at this and discussions we've had, the franchise documents requiring membership of NAR was really a big sticking point in this, because you had a third party forcing another party to then agree to a set of rules that were anti-competitive, which is different than a first party agreeing on their own to a set of rules that may be anti-competitive. But we'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep you guys up to date right here on Motivation Monday.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Thank you for that deep dive. Thankfully, we've got you to decipher all the craziness out there and let us know which direction we're going. Okay, so we'll jump quickly into the payroll report and unemployment, which was at 3.7%, which I know most of the times we're thinking about that and we're saying, hey, that's great. Unemployment is low. It means the economy is doing well. In this case, it could be somewhat of persistent inflation that the Fed's been trying to stop. I think that we see it and talk about it most importantly because of interest rates and what that means for housing prices. But what are your thoughts on kind of that unemployment that more than doubled what the census was?
Yeah, look, it's interesting. I mean, the jobs market is not cracking, and the Fed is frustrated by that. They really thought at this point, with all the changes they've made, the amount they've raised interest rates, they expected the economy to show more stress by now. They expected more layoffs to be happening, more unemployment, less job creation, and that's just not the case. The JOLTS report, which shows job openings, came in really high. The actual non-farm payroll came in 320,000 when it was expected to be 180,000. And what all this has done is reinforce this idea of we're going to see higher rates for longer, and higher rates for longer is really bad for mortgage rates. And mortgage rates staying high is really bad for inventory and buyers. And I think I saw a headline on Housing Wire, and my gut says they're going to correct it, but it said, housing inventory didn't go up even though rates went up. And it's like, if they haven't figured out yet that is not the new dynamic, like traditionally, if you go back in historic times, as interest rates would get higher, you would see inventory go up because there would be less buyers and the same number of sellers. Where now we're in this kind of new economy where, because the lock-in effect is so dramatic and the gap between all the people at the low twos versus today's current rates is so dramatic, that when rates go up, you see less inventory because less people are willing to list because they don't know where they're going to go from a 2.75 rate to an 8% rate. And so we're now seeing the inversion happen, where the higher rates go, there is less inventory, there's less people listing, there's also less buyers qualifying, and so all of that is working together to make the housing market even tougher. And that's something we have to fight. That's a headwind we have to fight. We're tracking monthly transactions. We're seeing the seasonality kick in now for time of year. It looks like this year is going to be worse than last year as far as number of transactions. The shining light has been home prices are staying high. And again, this is a part of that lock-in effect, a part of the idea that I'm not going to sell my house because I have a 2.75 and I don't want to go to an 8. And with the most recent move in interest rates, that's where we're starting to see people knock on the door of 8% rates. Depending on credit score and occupancy and things, they can get north of 8%. The interesting thing that happened is, obviously we have this crisis breaking out in Israel with the war, and so that may bring rates down a little bit. War traditionally creates a flight to safety, where people will move their assets out of more volatile stocks or more volatile currencies and put them into 10-year treasuries, which can bring rates down. We saw a little bit of that trying to happen last night when Treasury futures opened at 6 p.m., and then it happened again this morning at 9:30 in the Treasury futures markets. Today is Columbus Day, so there's kind of a limited amount of trading activity going on, but we're going to keep an eye on that to see where it goes. But, over time, it's rates higher for longer. People who locked in earlier did great. There's builders who locked in big pools of money early on. Those will eventually run out. And when the early lock-ins run out, and when the big builder block buys of MBSs run out and everyone goes to current market rates, it's going to be rough, and so we're seeing that for people who get pre-approved today. So again, your closings now are from people that maybe locked 30 days ago. The closings you see 30 days from now are going to be tough. And then eventually the builders, keep an eye on that builder money. Look at what the deadlines are. Get your customers to move fast, because the builders can only lock in those forward commitments for so long. And when those forward commitments run out, they're going to get much closer to current market rates as well.
That's right. That's right. Okay. All right. So that gives us kind of all the macro data, a lot to digest there. I know it's probably more than what people are used to be thinking about, but really, if you're an entrepreneur in this business, you're trying to navigate those waters, you're trying to avoid those dips that can happen inside of your business that are outside of your control, then these are the type of things that you really have to start to understand, because it helps you position yourself and understand what the playing field's going to look like a little bit ahead of you. So again, thanks for taking the time to dive into that. I want to switch over real quick to October marketing special. We've got the showcase video I'd like to play here in just a second, but just so that you guys are aware, what showcase is an elevated listing on these third-party portals like Zillow that have a different, these lights keep going in and out of here. It's
Our
like the
whole
boogie.
studio
It's October, man.
Our
It's
studio
like,
is
right,
bugged. We have a ghost in the studio.
Yeah. But anyways, let's just go ahead and roll the video. We'll give you an example of what the showcase is all about.
Soon, a limited number of agents across the U.S. will get the keys to a one-of-a-kind, best-in-class listing experience. Introducing Listing Showcase. This new class of listing display will help elevate your brand's visibility, amplify the reach of your listings on Zillow.com, wow shoppers with captivating media, and make it easier for you to connect with them. AI-powered showcase listings feature an entirely new design with scrolling hero images, room-by-room photo organization, a virtual tour, and an interactive floor plan that connects the photography to the location in the home, giving shoppers richer insights into its layout and features. And to get the word out, your listings will receive prioritized exposure in consumers' personalized search results on the one residential real estate site that hosts over 210 million unique users a month, Zillow.com, as well as dedicated, branded, new property alert emails sent to interested shoppers. But the number of subscriptions in each market is limited. Don't miss this exclusive opportunity to stand out in your market and on Zillow. Join the waitlist to learn more.
Perfect. Okay, so no wait list for us, obviously.
Yeah. So through our relationship with Zillow, we took down a significant portion of the subscriptions that were available across the two test markets, Tampa and Orlando, to make those available to you guys as a part of this October marketing special. Go ahead, Matt. And you've had a lot of these conversations. We're actually going to be doing a training today at 11 o'clock for anyone who's interested in learning more about the October marketing special, which does include the showcase product. But I think we're seeing some good early results from agents, and if you want to talk a little about that.
Yeah, so two of the things that we heard that was really kind of special. One, on these type of listings, you have the ability to be contacted directly. So generally what happens is on your listing, when someone's searching Zillow, it's going to say, request a tour, and it's going to, go to wherever they send it to, either their flex teams or Premier Agent or something like that. This gives you the ability to brand yourself on your own listings, which is really important. We tested a couple of these over the weekend. One of our listings that just went live over the weekend received 4 leads just in a couple of days. And so again, if you're thinking about this in terms of like the listings or the lifeline of your business, you should always figure out ways to get additional business from your listings. Generally, it's going to be easier for, to find buyers, or your sellers buying, so it turns into multiple transactions. This is a great way to do that. It's also a great way to think about all the additional exposure as you're walking to that listing appointment, how to talk about that with your seller and what the differences are. So we're going to go deep into this at 11 o'clock to really walk through what the best practices are, what we're seeing from those early results, and the open house results. We ran a test for that over the last weekend as well, too, to see if that impacted the open house results. And so we're going to share all of that today at 11 o'clock. So if you're interested in that, come along. We've also got a special offer for anyone who comes to that class that's going to be available just for a small group of people. So make sure that if you're interested or you have some listings coming up shortly, tune in at 11 o'clock today. I believe Tracy put the link in the chat, so it's inside of there. It was also in the weekly email that went out, and we've got a special offer for anyone who attends that class at 11 o'clock. So.
Yeah, so and real quick to bounce this back out. So we have our Agent Shield program where if we are buying a Zillow lead and it's on one of your listings, we give that to you for free. So we're still one of the largest Zillow buyers in the state of Florida, I think in the entire country. And so if through our Zillow lead buys, a lead comes in on one of your listings, we give that to you for free through what we call Agent Shield. Now, we don't get all the leads on any listing. And so the difference now with Showcase is you are going to get all of the leads from the person clicking this extra button, because we don't get all of the traffic. We don't buy every single zip code. And so Agent Shield, which is where we're able to give you the Zillow leads on your own listings, is only in the markets where we're buying the zip code, and then only if the lead is routed to us, and we never have 100% of the traffic. Now with Showcase, you get 100% of those clicks when they fill out that form. So a great way to pick up additional extra leads there, which is good. We're seeing more traffic being driven to those listings. They have the special red little banner on them. They really do show up to the consumer. They're being prioritized in the search ranks, even above normal LMS listings. And then being able to show it to your seller, showing them that video. We've had agents take that Showcase video we just showed and play it on their listing appointment, which again, just one more powerful weapon to add to listing power tools and everything else we have here to make to give you that absolute best chance at winning the listing. That's and right. at providing maximum opportunity for your seller. So we're going to talk about that at 11 o'clock today. We've bundled that service up with some open house marketing products, with the prospecting pack, with some additional digital marketing for the markets that aren't Showcase, and we're going to be doing a deep dive for that at 11 o'clock today.
That's right. Cool. All right. So let's switch on real quick because we are getting close on time. I want to talk about something real quick. People see success or your version of success as you define it for your life, and they maybe think it's instant. They're not quite sure of the journey. And so we're all in that process of trying to define that for ourselves and achieve that. And so, it's not necessarily overnight, right? I've been in real estate for 11 years now, and it's been a long journey. I started with short sales and, have continued to progress on that side, and we're all doing versions of that. But you kind of started early. You always wanted to be an inventor, which I don't think a lot of people knew. So kind of walk me through, some highlights that you've had over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I always like to tinker with stuff, and I think part of this is why I got into computer programming and kind of all the things I've done. But I always like to tinker, and so I would take stuff apart as a kid and break it and usually not be able to put it back together, which for my single mom, trying to get through life probably was not a great add-on in her life. But I remember this, when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, we didn't have the internet. There was no AOL Instant Messengers, and so my friends and I, there was like 4 or 5 of us that would talk on the phone a lot. Like we would get in these little like conference calls and talk on the phone, and I got in trouble, and my mom took my phone away. And so I took apart a CB radio and a Walkman and a piece of telephone cord, and I actually built a telephone out of this so I could get onto those calls. And I always had this knack, and I remember like as a kid seeing the TV commercials for like the inventor hotline. And it was like, oh, if you have an invention, you can build it, and we'll help you patent it and all these things. And that was always just something that really stuck with me. And so, again, early in life, I had that dream. I had the kind of TV dream. And while my ultimate career led me to neither one of them, I've gotten to really do a lot with both. Being on TV through RP Funding. This is a lot like being in TV production, being a part of Motivational Monday. And then that inventor kind of itch I had that I wanted to scratch, finally in 2017, I invented something, I guess maybe in 16, and then we filed for a patent on it in 2018. And so I got my first provisional patent in 2018, and then we got the official patent issued in 2021. And it's cool because like literally now my name is in like the patent records as inventor, like I'm listed as the inventor on this product. And, patent law is an interesting thing. Basically it gives you a way to protect your ideas, your inventions, so that you can then later, if someone copies them, either charge them royalties or stop them from doing it. And so that's kind of the whole idea behind why you file a patent. And so this patent is one of my prized possessions, and it's one that I actually gave to all of us because it's now owned by LPT Holdings, because this patent was filed by Listing Power Tools. And Dave, will you throw up a copy of our patent? So this was the patent that I filed in 2018 that was granted in 2021. This is the one that actually 2 patents on this. This one's called a design patent. And then if we can go to the second one, Dave. This one's called a utility patent. And you'll see there we have the picture of the box that we invented at Listing Power Tools. And we've got kind of the critical part there highlighted, the plurality of physical marketing items, including at least one door hanger, a postcard, a thank you card, and a sign. The method also includes assembling the plurality of physical marketing items into a display box. So, this was a lifelong dream for me to become an inventor and have a patent. And again, I believe so much in LPT Holdings that as a part of Listing Power Tools being owned by LPT Holdings now owns both of those patents. And it was a big moment in my life to achieve that, and now to share it with everyone who's part of the LPT family.
Yep. Well, we'll just leave that right there. Hopefully you guys are picking up what he's putting down. But more importantly, did you say that you built a telephone out of a CBS radio and a Walkman? Like how?
Yeah, a CB radio, a Walkman, and then like a piece of telephone line. It's like I soldered the telephone line into the Walkman, and then the Walkman had a tape that could play the digits, and then the CB radio provided the microphone, and I could talk to my friends. And after my mom took every phone out of our house because she couldn't stop me.
Anyways, okay, well, that pretty much almost concludes today, with the exception of our final announcement, of course, our state announcement. So.
Yes.
I will let you do the honors.
Yeah, let me pull up. I forget which state we're announcing today out of the remaining 5. Give me 1 second here. All right, today's state is, drumroll, and this is a big win for our folks in Northern Virginia. We're launching the state of Maryland as of 11/1.
That's right. And if you guys haven't noticed, our strategy is that there's some states where people have dual licenses and they're having to cross those state lines, and so that's been a big pain point for them. So that's not the only thing that we're looking at, but of course we're always going to try to take care of you guys internally, make sure that you have the best experience with us as possible. And so we do look at that as we're going to be in all 50, right? But this is how we think about it. So awesome. Looking forward to what the future brings. Hoping to see you guys at 11 o'clock. Any final words for you today, Robert?
Now, look, I mean, guys, we're a lot going on in the market between interest rates, between kind of these gyrations in our industry around NAR and everything. Just, again, as we talk about every week here, keep your head down, keep crushing it. We're going to keep opening new states. I think we've got, 4 more to go, three, 4 more to go to hit our 7 for this little set of announcements. Keep doing what you're doing. We're growing like crazy. We're seeing success. The market continues to contract. Our transaction count continues to go up each and every month, which is exciting. You're going to see Q3 results in the next couple of weeks start coming out from the big real estate companies. And I think you're going to see that Q3 was a lot worse than Q2. And so while a lot of companies kind of got back into the black or had a good Q2, Q3 is going to turn that around. We are, again, blessed by the fact that because we continue to grow agent count and geography, our transaction counts keep going up. We're going to have significantly more transactions in Q3 than we did in Q2. We're probably one of the few real estate companies that will be able to say that, and they just continue to go through. And, again, we're on this march to 10,000 agents by Grand Prix.
That's right.
And I'm excited about it. On Friday, we did the Real Estate First Friday. We released what's going to be our new agent attraction deck. We're going to hopefully get that edited up and out here in the next, by the end of this week. It's the first time I've ever done the deck start to finish. We're going to share that video with you. I'm really excited about the messaging. We just have so much more than we did when we first started. Like, it was nice to go back through and say, hey, when we launched LPT Realty, we had an amazing offering, but to see how much better it's gotten in just 18 months, the new tools, so many things we've added, new technology. We really have done a lot in just 18 months to make LPT a complete no-brainer for any agent, and really excited about that. So go out there and have a big week. Embrace the tools, embrace the business. Let's all go buckle down and absolutely crush this fourth quarter the best we can.
That's right. Awesome.